What's up, y'all? It's everyone's favorite segment, the Things I See on Twitter, episode number 10. This is an older one than the story that took place because this took place about 2 months ago. And the Twitter account known as Women's Posting L's Online had a story of a woman who was married. She also worked, but her husband paid their living expenses. He asked her to contribute to 30% of her expenses, and she not only refused, but divorced him. Then ironically, she's now working 2 jobs to support herself. So this happened, and one person I saw had a view that I personally thought was outdated. Here he claimed he would feel ashamed to ask his wife to work or spend money when she has duties in the household. I've been good about not responding to this type of junk, but I said that basically cooking and cleaning a house is not on par to working a full-time job and stressing over your employment status. He then clapped back about how he would rather work triple shifts than have his wife work. Another person in the thread said they would support laws that prevented women from working. I kid you not. So, first person. I think you would literally die if you worked a triple shift, which is 24 hours of non-stop work without time to get a good night's rest. Secondly, if you gotta do that, maybe y'all need to downsize your living arrangements and get on a tight financial budget for the next few months so you don't literally kill yourself by working. Or real talk, maybe it's best y'all get divorced. Cause what's the point of a marriage if you're working so hard? You quite literally can't see or spend time with your wife, nor can you enjoy the luxury of a cooked meal and a clean house. You work so hard to protect your wife's supposed sole purpose in life. And for the second person, I'm gonna assume they just didn't think it through before tweeting what they wrote. I'm trying to be nice and give them the benefit of the doubt and not assume they're sexist and probably should never have a wife. I'm not trying to count pockets or act like I'm a financial advisor, otherwise I would be charging y'all a fee. But it's more like a, hey, I know rent in New York for a crappy apartment will run me for $2,000. Maybe I shouldn't live in a New York apartment knowing the job I work requires me to work 100 hours a week just to barely make rent, when said apartment is cheaper in a different location. You feel me? Now before we get into this, we got a disclaimer as usual. Just because I saw something or I said something that sounds generalized, just don't assume I'm being ignorant. It's easier for me to say, men need to do this or women need to do that, instead of saying the 5% of women who refuse to work. Like you see how messy that gets? Another disclaimer, this is also low-key video to my family and members of the African American community. Not because I think we are extremists in family ideologies like the people in question. And no, this is not a racist connotation. But I have family members alive and not living who believe in skewed values that I personally find detrimental as time goes on. I've seen other households refuse to adopt and accept things as is because they took beliefs in dumb things like women shouldn't provide on par as men or you shouldn't ask for any help with responsibilities. So if any of them watches this, basically have an open mind to the fact that life isn't a bubble. I'm not going to sit here and completely bash the people I argued with, but I will talk about how I think it's dangerous to have these outdated ideologies about life. Yes, old heads and many of their beliefs of the past can be wise and give you good insight about life itself. But many of the philosophies and ways of life that are generations old aren't efficient or healthy in today's world. You have to understand that these old heads, their views of the work, aka the quote-unquote old school way of thinking, came from people not having the best upbringing, access to the best lifestyles, or even general knowledge of the world. We are more progressive today than people were 70 years ago. If you remember from my paying the bills video, I talked about the origins of men paying restaurant bills was because women couldn't work. Well, the same idea that a man must provide and be able to be the sole breadwinner is from the same tree branch. So back then, it was expected for a man to care for his wife because his wife quite literally could not care for herself due to labor laws, sexism, and discrimination. In today's world, women have more opportunities than in the past. Now, we can have an entire debate and discussion on equality because I do know and believe women aren't given the same opportunities, but they do benefit in many aspects, like companies trying to promote diversity and the fact that sad men are willing to throw money at women for existing. But aside from that entire ordeal, women today can land a full-time job and be self-sufficient. In other words, women today aren't or shouldn't have to be dependent on a man if they wanted to live like a woman 100 years ago. So, the idea that a man must be the sole breadwinner is absurd. As people going into marriage, I think it's important for people to accept or be prepared to step in and be the main provider. Not because I'm trying to act sexist or anything of that nonsense, but the fact that life can flip in a second, especially in today's world where we are literally in a crisis. Inflation is highest as it's been in 30 years. People can't afford homes, cost of living has gone up, people either lost jobs or are still struggling to recover from the pandemic. Life has changed drastically in the last 2 years, the last 10 years, 15 years, and so on. So having a single breadwinner in a house that could have two is a terrible idea if you care for a happy home and marriage. I'll even provide evidence. I'm taking a consumer marketing class. Apparently 37% of women are making more than their husbands, which by definition makes them the breadwinner. So we are certainly not in the age to feel shame or your pride is shot as a man because your wife makes more money or provides on equal footing as you. This isn't just irrelevant data. Over a third of hetero marriages are clearly impacted by this on a daily basis. If you're not a total quack and are responsible, you may want to know there are health benefits to a married couple, or any type of couple who are actually working and pitching in to the living expenses. First, it alleviates the stress of the main breadwinner. Whether it's because they pay a higher percentage of the expenses or just have a higher paying job in general, their quality of life improves when they don't have to worry about everything. Majority of you watching this video are either currently working or have worked at some point. And you all know that crap can get stressful. Worrying about being fired, stressful. Going to work with little to no sleep is stressful. Even if you feel pretty good, if your coworkers are in bad moods, that's stressful. If someone you couldn't predict to happen at the job just got busy all of a sudden, that's stressful. So having someone who works and contributes to alleviate some of the stress, as it is an event that you lose your job, your family doesn't have to end up homeless. Have you guys ever wondered why women tend to live longer than men? No, it's not because of the memes of men doing dumb and reckless things for fun. It's partially true. But before I say what I'm going to say, I'm not a doctor, but most physicians would probably back up what I'm about to say. The reason is because of the historical role men are put in. We gotta look at the older generation. The older people in our society and also globally, they are less educated in comparison to the people today. This means by not having a good education, but still have to provide as a sole breadwinner, the men are forced to take jobs like construction, roofing, carpentry, lumber work, and jobs that require unionization today due to their sheer levels of danger associated with it. Also, stress kills people. Stress takes years off of your life, raises your blood pressure, and is taxing on your physical, mental, and emotional health. So working jobs that are taxing on your health, combined with stress of trying to provide for your wife and your family, is a recipe for disaster. So as a man, if you value your life and health, it is important to literally not kill yourself for your job. Screw what society, your family, or the people around you say. And women, if you don't want to be widowed and you want a loving husband as long as possible, consider taking up work to alleviate some of the stress. Because unlike tangible forces causing men to die, stress is something that is extremely ignored in life. So personally, if someone was born before the 80s, I wouldn't beat them over the head about how outdated their beliefs are if they firmly believe in these gender norms. Mostly because they experience sexism, workplace discrimination, and opportunities for women being unequal. Don't get me wrong, it still goes on today, that's for sure. But the opportunities afforded to people these past two generations are better than they were in the past. So yeah, I wouldn't tell someone older that they're wrong, because their upbringing and the world around them molded them to be the way they are. But as for us young adults to middle-aged folks, I do have a problem in this belief. If you want to live and can create an environment where one person works and the other is a stay-at-home parent, that's cool, I won't stop you. But if the issue arises where the economy collapses, you lose your job, or the cost of living is growing faster than your income can grow, if you think working overtime instead of your significant other picking up some part-time work while the kids are at school, then that's crazy personally. Like I said earlier, stress and working yourself to the bone is extremely dangerous and should be treated with respect. So have at it if you believe that's what you want. But it's most certainly not the only way to go since we aren't living in the 1930s. So hear me out. If you, YOU, personally choose to live that way when there are breadwinners and stay-at-home spouses, cool, more power to you. But there's a reason 50% of marriages end in divorce. Part of it has to do with thinking someone's value is tied to their gender and whatever role society hundreds of years ago placed on them. But seriously, I know women, and surprisingly, male who are stay-at-home parents or their only job is to cook and clean. I don't want to instill paranoia, but you seriously have to worry about the happiness of your partner if they can't be with you for 2/3 of the day. If you work 8 hours and the time you drive to and from work as well as sleep, we're talking about a good 16 hours of time is gone in a day. You should potentially want them to work if you have no kids or if the children are at an age where they don't need 24/7 supervision. Otherwise, a bored spouse may file a divorce or let the milkman come inside the crib, if you know what I mean. So again, like I said, the issue with having outdated views on life is that the meaning and origin of said views get lost over time and people just end up going with the motions without thinking for themselves. For example, you ever wonder why we say bless you when someone sneezes? Here's the answer. When the bubonic plague swept through Europe, if you ever sneezed, Europeans said bless you in hopes that the Lord will protect you from the death of the disease. Today we just say it as a formality. And there's nothing wrong with it, but comparing a common cold today to the bubonic plague is obviously not the same. Now apply that logic to thinking outdated views on relationship status and gender roles. If a man is still paying for everything, then you are more prone to problems that arises generations ago. See, when jobs are mostly employed by men, you have less risk of losing your job since the playing field is only 50% of what it is today. And people never think about it when they blindly believe in crap their grandparents used to believe in. A problem with discussing these things is that we easily talk as if these scenarios are in a vacuum. I try not to do that as I did with my last 2 videos, but I think it's important that if we don't have all the context, if there is a debate or issue, it means something isn't going right. Think about it like this. As I said earlier, the woman who divorced her husband, she's now working 2 jobs. If her husband was able to provide for both of them under the same roof, and he only asked for her to pitch in for a small percent, that means that either he had a higher paying job than what she was working with, or he just had better financial literacy. So, people who are trying to dodge the work life or who think work life is not for them or that splitting working is not the way to go, just remember there are definitely pros and cons to all your decisions, and I just want you guys to think about that before you believe in whatever gender norms out there. So that's it for me, y'all. Let me know how y'all feel about this down below. Let me know if I said anything that you agree or disagree with. Tell me if I'm crazy or if I'm on point with some of the things I said. Bottom line is, I'm just telling people, hey, learn how to be open-minded and learn how to establish boundaries and standards that you and your partner can agree on, especially in the world that we're in today. Otherwise, bye.